Hey, what's up, everybody? Hitman BK here, and we're continuing the Diablo 4 coverage today. I want to give you like the cliff notes of everything that's come out. We have the first video. I might touch a little bit on that, and then there was the update on the 10th. It's also been a minute since I put a video out. I lost my voice after ACL. I got a little sick. I still might sound a little weird, but you know what? I got to get some stuff out for y'all. I'm really excited for what's coming in Diablo, and there was some Lords of the Fallen content. And we hit 1,000. Thank you all so very much. I know it's not like 100,000 or anything else like some of these other people you probably watch, but for a guy who's got a full-time job and a bunch of other stuff going on and a dad and everything else, and I only do this at night, it's really incredible to have the support to hit, 1,000 subscribers in over, in under just about 3 months. So that's really incredible. Thank you all so very much. I will say we will be live streaming tomorrow. We're going to live stream tomorrow, the Lords of the Fallen release. Super excited for that. But for this, today, we've got Diablo 4. I'm really, really excited for the 17th. And let's get into why. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay. Oh, whoa, transition late on that. Sometimes my computer just doesn't wake up. So what happened? What's going on? Why do you care? My Diablo players, we all had the same complaints, right? I've talked about it. I didn't mind a lot of what Diablo did. I'll say it off the bat. I'm a casual player. I think the game was made for casual players. However, I do agree that in-game was missing. Farmable loot was missing. A lot of just back-end QLL systems were missing in terms of like hell tides and understanding how those chests work, and why is everything kind of had this barrier in your way sort of feel that never makes anything feel good when you hit a certain cap. And for a lot of people, that was like the 70 to 80 range, and we all kind of fell off. And in the previous video, we talked about how they're already making changes to the end game. They're already making changes to what happens when you hit World Tier 4 and you hit that level 70 and your chase. Where does your chase go, and what you can find? And for anyone who missed that video, essentially what happened is they added 5 new bosses. They've changed how the entire leveling process kind of works from kind of like 50 on. And they've added in bosses in the World Tier 3 for you to farm. And they've added more bosses in a sort of a better loot, a sort of a better overall loop for the Tier 3 and Tier 4 of Diablo that looks really, really good. And on top of that, a part of that loop is actually farmable uniques as well as uber uniques. But on top of all of that, the 10th, what happened on the 10th, what you should care about on the 10th. Look, there's a huge patch notes. Okay. If you want to really dive deep into how they changed every class, because they touched every class, they buffed necromancy, they buffed everything. They only brought down one class, and it really wasn't much as a nerf as it was just, I think, fixing some things that were actually broken. And they have gone through and made changes to almost every single unique. So the patch notes are huge. I think they said something of the nature of the size of the patch notes is literally like every single patch note up to this point plus more, or almost as much as that. So it's incredibly huge. I want to touch on the things that you should care about that I think are going to bring people back. And we did that in the first video over the things I just discussed. And what happened on the 10th, the first thing was they're changing elemental resistances, y'all. This was a huge pain point for a lot of people. It was something that was kind of hard to understand. Why am I getting frozen? Why am I getting stunned? Like, how can I get out of this? Like, how does this mathematics work? Well, they're making it a whole lot easier. So before this update, the way things had worked is you would have 20% poison resistance, you gain 20% more, you now have 36%, right? There was no hard cap, and you could gain infinitely, but essentially you had diminishing returns every time you stacked the same resistance, which doesn't feel good. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So if we punch forward here, they're going to change it to now an additive. So if you've got 20 and you add 20, you're now going to have 40. But the way that's going to work is you're going to be capped at 70%. So you can hit 70%. That's going to be your cap at a base level. However, you can go to 85% with new effects. Those effects will be, excuse me, sorry, I'll tie to the Paragon points and tied to a couple other places where you can actually go beyond the cap to like 85. If anybody plays Remnant, this is so much like Remnant, it's not even funny. There's resistances, you hit the cap. I mean, there was armor too, you can hit the cap, and then that felt really good. Because then, you're fine. And the nice thing about the way this works is resistances will matter more, and it'll actually be more complex, and there's sort of like this puzzle to solve, and that's trying to get to that 85% level, right? So the goal here also was to make things more achievable for everybody. So you should actually be really close to the 70% cap at level 80. So even if you're not mapping this, because of they've added resistances, all resistances into the rings, they've changed like how those rings are going to work in terms of giving you resistance. Without even thinking about it, you should actually hit 70% at level 80. You should be pretty damn close to it. And you shouldn't fall too far behind, because rings and amulets will add all resist, and there's a failsafe sort of in place to make sure you're close to that minimum resistance. This is all great. This is just the base helper. And I think where they're really looking at the puzzle and where you can go is getting that extra 15%, which is going to be huge when you're farming probably these uber uniques and these uber bosses in World Tier 4. And a lot of that's going to come from the Paragon, elixirs, and things like that. They even showed the example here. This Heady elixir poison resistance will now increase poison resistance by 30% and the maximum poison resistance by 6%. So you can kind of see how, depending on the boss and what you're going up against, you're going to be able to really fine tune your build per an encounter, which is really, really good, because honestly, the resistance thing just sucked. And I mentioned earlier, y'all, they've added unique. They've changed the way uniques works, and their general feel here was a lot of players had come out and said that uniques don't feel good when they drop, because sometimes people would just literally pass up on a unique even if it was tailored for their build. Their changes to they said they changed almost every single unique. That strategy was to add new stats. This is a fake example they gave, which is like increased tornado duration, if that was like a thing. Add larger existing stat ranges. So if something usually rolled 15 to 25%, it'll now roll 30 to 45. And then the only place you can obviously get these rolls is the unique. Override slot rules, which this example is cooldown reduction can't normally roll on a weapon, but this unique it does. And updated unique effects. Whereas, you know, this is just a joke thing, but you know, sometimes getting an effect on a unique was actually like a pain in the butt, and they want to get rid of that. They just want to make it like just hitting the enemy will give you the effect. Some of the examples they gave were like the Hellhammer here. It used to do 15% damage to burning enemies. Now it does 52% damage to burning enemies, and it gives you +4 ranks of upheaval, which is actually really, really, really good. And the same thing for the Ancient Oath. I know you can't see it. My big face is over it. But essentially, before Steel Grasp launched 2 additional change, enemies hit by Steel Grasp were slowed by 55% for 3 seconds. They changed this so that the Steel Grasp enemies hit by Steel Grasp will take 44% increased damage. They won't be slow. They will actually take increased damage. So really fundamental changes to how the uniques work. Now, on top of that, they've added this, and this is the end game. This is great. This is a huge change that I think a lot of people are going to be really excited about. And you guys can like take pictures of this if you want. I can post it if you want me to. Just sound off in the comments. But these are targetable uniques. So this boss is going to drop these uniques. Varshan, these are the uniques he's going to drop, and these are what you can farm off Varshan. Lord Zier, who is the ending boss of the DLC, these are all of his uniques. Some of these are also new, right? These are new uniques tied to the update. We've got Beast in Ice are dropping all these uniques. So you're gonna be able to farm all of these uniques, which is just absolutely incredible. You've got Duriel, these are all his uniques. And then you get into some of the really, really cool stuff here, which is Duriel. You can see right here, Uber uniques. So you'll be able to actually farm Uber uniques. You can sit here on Duriel and farm him all day. Uber Duriel and farm Uber uniques, which I mean, like, should have been in the game at the start. It wasn't, but well, incredibly happy to see that happen now. There's also been, like I said, class improvements across the board. Their purpose of class adjustments was essentially to buff them and to bring builds up to a point that made sense for everyone. They have a graph on this I can show you guys. These are some of the examples they had for changing the Barbarian, the Sork, the Rogue, the Druid, and the Necromancer. They're all really, really good change. And what those changes kind of tie into is also changing the damage buckets. So originally where we sat, right, is crit damage and vulnerable were the big things. That's what everybody wanted to do. And they're making it now so that crit damage, vulnerable, and overpower are all their own different damage buckets. And the way this is going to work is vulnerable will give you up to 20%, crit damage up to 50%, and overpower up to 50%, essentially taking everything and leveling it out and making it so that it's viable to do things outside of just crit and vulnerable. It's viable to now have a dot build and a lot of other things. So this is clearly going to be something as well, y'all. I mean, this is all just math, and on paper, I look at it as like a big whatever. I mean, it's going to come down to what does it feel like when we're playing the game. But essentially, they've taken it so that you can now... It's good to mix. You can mix things and bring in more choices into your build without locking yourself into just one clearly overpowered damage set. I don't think explaining the math is going to help at all, as much as I think this chart does a really good job of showcasing how before crit vulnerable builds were up here, every other build was down here. Their job was to take all of that, put it together, crit vulnerable and other builds on the same path, adjust monster power too, so everything is on this linear path that you then can start messing around with things and mixing damage types and I mean, just creating builds, like actually creating builds. And a lot of that's going to be tied to the Paragon boards. And an example of that is like this right here. So you can see in the original legendary node for Elemental Summoner, your conjuration skills had a 5% reduced cooldown or mana cost per conjuration skill you have equipped, right? That was the Elemental Summoner in the Paragon board. Now, your conjuration skills will have a 10% reduced cooldown. They will also deal bonus damage equal to 3% of the total amount of your bonus damage with fire, lightning, and cold. So you can just see how you're going to be able to really use your Paragon board to craft very unique builds for yourself, for your play style that should make it viable and should make it fun, without feeling like you're maybe playing with your buds and you're just doing nothing. You're hitting like peas, right? And another example they gave was like you could create an ultimate build because No Witness will now, your ultimate will gain an additional 60% damage from your damage with ultimate bonus and grant this bonus to all skills for 8 seconds when cast. So that's, I mean, you can just see where they're coming in, they're touching everything and making it more well-rounded and better and feel better to invest in your Paragon board. They're also delivering on a previously stated goal where they're going to add Paragon glyphs to every class to allow various legendary effects to scale. Excuse me, y'all. They're adding 2 new Paragon glyphs per class. They plan on doing more of this in the future. So that is really cool. That is the highlights of this update. There are a huge amount of changes, like I said before, to uniques. They've touched almost every unique. They've messed with every single. They've buffed the crap out of Necromancer. If you're a Necromancer minion guy and you want to look into that for the new season, you're going to be happy because it's got massively buffed. But since I know not everybody plays every class or may not know everything, I really wanted us to hit on the high level things that happen on the 10th and why, again, I think it's worth coming back. And to summarize why you should jump in on the 17th, you can farm uniques. There's going to be this is all right. This is all on paper, y'all. So we're going to see how it feels. But on paper, there is a better in-game loop for tier 3 and tier 4. They've increased the experience gain from 50 to 100 to get you to 100 faster, so it doesn't feel like such a slog. They've updated uniques so that they feel unique. They've updated the Paragon system so that you can actually create Paragon builds and it actually means something. They've made vast changes to resistances and the general mathematics behind the game. So it's really going to be a complete overhaul of the back-end systems. And on top of all of that, it's a new season. So they're adding in new enemies. They're adding in new bosses, 5 new bosses. It's all vampire themed. They're adding in vampire powers, which sound really cool. And the way that system works seems like it looks cool. There's a new sort of Helltide event tied to the vampires that looks really good. So in general, it just seems like things are looking up. And for Hell Tides, the chests now, you'll be able to hover over them and see what that is. So you can literally target farm Hell Tides without having to run up to a gear chest and then figure out that it was chests and not legs, if that's what you wanted. The world boss timers have been shortened by 50%. You will now get also, I think, a 30-minute, either 30 or 60-minute notification on when they're going to hit. Just a lot of really great changes to address a lot of player feedback. And you know what? I know we can all say this should have happened on launch, but hey, it happened now, and I think that's really great. And then they've had some stuff they showcased for the future too, which I really just want to touch on. This is not for this update. This is for the next update. After the 17th, they're going to add target dummies. Inside Kovashad, you're going to be able to create your little dummy area and come in and test your builds. Like, holy crap, why wasn't this a thing right when this launched? And I think that's just awesome. And they're going to also add an ability to completely reset your Paragon board. So a lot of really great things. The future looks really good too. It's wonderful to see Diablo touch on a lot of community feedback and literally smack season 2 with a sizable content update. It does make season 1 feel like it was kind of like a filler, like, hey, let's just give them something so we can like really bear down on season 2 and make some stuff here. But if this is the kind of updates we can expect moving forward per season, this could clearly be a game worth sticking around and playing and checking out. Sound off in the comments on your thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. I'm sorry I didn't like read the 1 hour long patch notes. I just kind of wanted to give you guys an overview. I will put the full patch notes in the description below. If you enjoyed this, make sure you guys like and subscribe. And, you know, I thank you all so much again for getting me to 1,000. I have a lot of fun doing this. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in Sanctuary on the 17th. Join the Filthy Casual Discord. We're going to have a Filthy Casual clan as well in Diablo. If you'd like to be a part of that, by all means, come join. I'm Hitman BK, and until next time.